So, hi, Cali.
Hey.
By the way, your name's not really Cali Lewis.
No, my name's not Cali Lewis. That's what I go by online. It's Luria Petrucci. And when I started the show, I knew that I was building a brand. Luria Petrucci has been butchered my whole life by teachers, by students, by everybody I've known in my whole life. And I knew that it wasn't Googleable. So I needed kind of like an all-American name that people could pronounce and people could spell. People outside the country don't tend to have a problem with my name. They pronounce it pretty well. But Americans have a little bit more difficulty.
Is it an Italian name?
It is, yes.
That's what it sounds like.
Yeah.
And so you do GeekBrief.
Mm-hmm.
And how did you realize that you were a geek?
Oh, I've known that since I was a kid. I mean, the first moment I realized that I was really into this stuff was, I was thinking probably 8, when I saw my mom. I was standing in the doorway of my mom's bedroom. She was typing at her word processor. It wasn't even really a computer, it was just a word processor. And she was typing along really fast, and I was just in awe. I mean, I remember just staring there like, oh, wow. So I made her teach me how to type, and I was on that thing as often as I could be outside of school and when she wasn't using it. And then my dad, they were divorced, so I went to my dad's house for the summers, and he had a real computer with paint and with all sorts of stuff. So I would spend hours on that. And he had Nintendo, Super Mario Brothers, and so I would play games all morning before anybody would wake up. So that whole development cycle was early for me.
And so from then you moved on to more like development or design, or simply being into consumer electronics?
Well, I've always been kind of into consumer electronics, but at 14 I started building my own websites from scratch. I learned HTML and ASP and Java a little bit, and kind of got out of it for a while after I started, working as to make money.
So what did you do when you started working?
Well, actually, my husband and I had a web development company for quite a while before the bubble burst in '99.
Okay.
And after the bubble burst, we spent about 6 months trying to keep it going, racked up like $50,000 in debt, just trying to keep it going. Wow. Decided, all right, we need to be responsible and pay some bills. So we got a day job at a self-storage company of all things, because we've always worked together and lived where we worked, and that was one of the only things you can do that way. Outside of working for yourself. So we worked for a self-storage company for 5 years. They treated us really well. I learned a lot about running business, and because basically they turn it over to you. It's not your money, but they turn it over to you to run like your company.
So it's like a franchise?
Yeah, exactly. Well, not a franchise exactly. It was working for a company, but because
you were managing it.
But it managed, yeah. So did that for 5 years, then realized that we just didn't want to be doing that when we were old and gray and toothless. And we said, we need to find something that we're passionate about. And then we've heard about podcasting, and we immediately saw the potential in that. And it was technology. It was something that we loved.
So you guys have been married for around 10 years, and at some point I know that you had another podcast, the Crappy Christian Show, or I'm guessing you might have had others, but what were those about?
That one was the first thing we started out with. My husband really has a passion for audio. He loves audio. We started out with an audio show, tried to be like Dawn and Drew, who is the people who kind of inspired us to podcast in the first place. They're a couple in Wisconsin. They podcast from a farm, and they do it for a living. It's this.
What do they podcast about?
They just talk about their lives. The girl is hilarious, kind of racy for some people, but they just talk about their lives, and they're very talented at making people laugh, and they're very funny. But we kind of tried to be like them when we first got started, and that was what the Crappy Christian Show is all about. We were podcasting about our lives. I mean, we don't think of ourselves as good Christians, because we like martinis. We're pro-choice. We're pro-gay. So I mean, it's not like we have all of these typical things that you think of a Christian as being. So that's why we called ourselves the Crappy Christians.
And today we're here at WordCamp Dallas, and you talked about pastors at churches,
Right.
and how sometimes they're kind of disengaged from people and they're not really their friends. What else can you talk about that? Because you talked a lot about how when you have a site or a blog that you should have friends, not fans.
Right. Yeah, that's one of my biggest things. From the beginning, I hate the word fan, because I can't call myself a fan of anybody other than Jennifer Love Hewitt. Jennifer Love Hewitt, I'm a big fan. But I would never want to meet her because I don't have anything to say to her necessarily, and this is what the fan thing is like. I will follow or watch or listen to anything she does because I'm a fan, but I don't have anything to say to her, so when it's a friendship between the host and the audience or the community, it's like when we get together for meetups, we have tons of stuff to talk about because we're just friends.
Right.
It's a very it's a friendship. When I get to know my community, there are certain people that post comments all the time or email all the time. When we finally meet in person at an event or anything like that, it's not like I feel like I've met them before, so it's not like, oh, nice to meet you. It's like, hey, it's great to see you again.
Yeah. You forget that you don't even know them.
Yeah, and half the time people say, oh, have you met? I'm like, yeah. Wait, no, I haven't.
But you kind of have, because you did it online.
Because it's a conversation and it's a relationship, a constant thing that's going on over and over and over again online.